back to Momma Drama and Trauma. I'm your host, Jenny Kimmel, and today's episode covers October 16th through the 31st, a stretch of days that felt like the weight of the world came crashing down all at once. My mom was hospitalized, fighting not just one, but two serious bacterial infections, including Legionnaire's pneumonia. At the same time, the kids were struggling more deeply with school and trust. The business felt like a war zone, and on top of it all, the divorce papers were officially filed. Halloween landed right in the middle of it. And as strange as it sounds, it felt symbolic. The masks were coming off, and the truth was staring me in the face. This was the month I found myself standing at the edge of grief, anger, betrayal, and strength, sometimes all in the same day. So let's dive in. Business and betrayal collide. It was hard running a business with somebody who wasn't really present in my life anymore. Before, we would talk every day about our finances, about decisions, about how to make things work. Now, we weren't even on the same page. I didn't trust him, and we were trying to run everything through texts and calls. Before, he'd be here in person. He could see the numbers. We could sit down at the kitchen table, spread out the invoices, and work through it together. Now I was alone with it all. The invoices, the statements, even gas receipts, all of it fell on me. We had a shop that owed us a ton of money we desperately needed. It was something that should have been handled together, but instead it became another burden on my shoulders. And then, right in the middle of all of this chaos, he decided he wanted to buy another house. We hadn't even filed for divorce yet, and he asked me to sign a waiver so he could use money for a down payment. I remember exactly where I was when that call came in. I was at my desk working, and when he asked me, I was shocked. It gave me the worst feeling: shady, deceitful, manipulative, undermining, all of it. It gave me the ick, and if I'm being honest, I did consider saying yes at first. Because I still loved him, and when you love somebody, it's hard not to consider helping them. But the more I sat with it, the clearer it became. This is never going to happen. We were barely 3 months out from him leaving our home. We still had a loan on our family house. How was he going to get approved for another one? And on top of that, he wanted me to sign off saying that house would mean nothing to me, that it wasn't mine, that I had no claim. It was messy. It was confusing. It was too much, too soon. Eventually, it became an absolutely not. I would not do that. That's where the note in my phone came from on October 18th. I'll go into more detail about this a little later in the episode, but here's how it started out. You really have a lot of nerve calling me and asking me to do you a favor that's going to F me over. Haven't you effed me over enough already? Do not call me again asking me for favors. I have enough shit going on in my life right now with my mom being sick in the hospital, and I don't need your bullshit to deal with on top of it. That's exactly how I felt. It was bitter. It was raw, and it was another time anger started to come out of me in words instead of just tears. I was the one keeping the business alive. And honestly, I was glad I had it. At least I could control that part of my life. At least I knew what was there, what was coming in. But while I was working to hold everything together, he was out there making new plans, starting fresh, shopping for houses, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. He had known her maybe 5 months. He had just walked away from a 22-year marriage. And not just a marriage, a family, and already he was planning a new future. There was no reflection, no pause, no thought about what was best for the kids, no healing, just moving on. I was bitter because everything had fallen on me, and he was just living like nothing had happened. This was the first time I felt the shift. Not just sadness, not just grief, but real searing anger. Parenting in the storm. Carson's grades were slipping. He was a freshman in high school, already navigating the transition of a brand new school, a brand new season of life. And on top of it all, he was watching his family fall apart. My poor kids were suffering. I was doing everything I could to hold them steady, but I was barely surviving myself. Normally, I was strict about school. I made it a priority no matter what. But during these weeks, if the boys woke up and said they weren't feeling up to it, I didn't push as hard. I stopped pushing the way I always had because I knew how fragile we all were. I knew they were hurting. They were trying to figure it out too. I wanted to be honest, but not break them. It's such a tightrope because I knew how I felt. I knew how drained and broken I was. And if I, as an adult, didn't even know how to process the weight of it all, how could they? They were just teenagers. So yes, I was more lenient, but I still held my ground with discipline. They needed structure. Even when I was crumbling inside, I tried to make sure there were still rules in our home. Did I feel guilty that their grades were slipping? Of course, but I also reminded myself they were hurting too. They were trying to figure this out just like I was. I blamed myself for the chaos they had to live in. Through all of it, I still tried to hold the line. I still showed up. I still pushed them when I needed to, and I let go when they needed a break. That was the balance I could manage in those weeks. Imperfect, but done with love. I don't remember Carson ever making excuses for his grades. That almost made it harder because there wasn't a conversation about it, just the quiet reality of his struggle. It broke my heart that what should have been an exciting new start in high school was weighed down and overshadowed by all of this. And then there were the moments when they overheard us. We often went into the garage to argue, thinking it gave them some distance. But I know they heard us. They didn't always say what they heard, but they didn't have to. Their behavior spoke louder than words. At one point, they even admitted that being in a room with both of us together just felt awkward. It's weird when we're all five together now, they said. What used to feel normal suddenly felt strange and uncomfortable. That broke me because even the simplest family moments weren't safe for them anymore. I also began to notice how differently the boys were processing the divorce. Ryan and Derek especially. There were conversations, especially as time went on, where it became clear they didn't trust their dad anymore. The trust was broken when they learned what he had done. And once that happened, there was no way I could repair it for them. And the truth, I don't think he even tried. He was so lost in the newness of his relationship that rebuilding trust with his kids didn't seem to be his priority. And that crushed me because I couldn't do it for him. I could see them losing trust in their dad too. In the beginning, he had told them this affair wasn't serious, that it didn't mean anything, that it wasn't going anywhere. And yet, here we are, he's still with her to this day. So they came to me because they trusted me. They asked me the questions, And sometimes I couldn't answer. Sometimes I knew the truth but didn't know how much to share. That's one of the hardest parts of parenting through divorce, walking that fine line, wanting to be honest, wanting to protect them, and not knowing where one ends and the other begins. I carried so much guilt during this time for the missed school days, for the awkward handoffs, for the arguments in the garage, for the tension they felt in their own home. I blamed myself for not being able to shield them from it all, but I know now. I was doing the best I could. I showed up every day. I loved them fiercely. I fought to give them structure when I could, and I gave them grace when they needed it. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best I could do. My mom in the hospital. Around the middle of October, my mom got so sick at home that my sister finally took her to the ER and she was admitted. Her oxygen levels were dangerously low. She didn't look good, and I was terrified. My sister and I did everything we could to be there for her. One of us was almost always at the hospital, but it wasn't easy. My sister worked full time. I was still trying to keep our business alive, manage the boys' schedules, and deal with the divorce drama all at the same time. It felt impossible, like I was being pulled in 10 different directions and failing at all of them. My mom ended up being in the hospital for just a little over 2 weeks. That's when we learned she had Legionnaire's pneumonia, a rare, severe form of pneumonia caused by bacteria that can come from contaminated water sources. It's scary because it comes on fast and hits the lungs hard. It leads to dangerously low oxygen, high fevers, and it requires aggressive antibiotics and close monitoring. And for a while, I didn't know if she was going to make it. Those hospital days felt endless. I was juggling her doctors and tests, running kids back and forth, trying to keep the business going, and answering divorce-related chaos all at once. I remember thinking more than once, I cannot lose my mom. I can't lose my dad, my husband, and my mom, all of my best friends, all within a year. It was one of the darkest fears I've ever carried. And what made it worse? The way he handled it. He showed almost no initiative. It was like he didn't care. Like my mom, who had loved him and cared for him for 24 years, didn't even exist anymore. I had to tell him to call her, to check in, to show some sign of compassion. And his response? Well, I thought you didn't want me to. That cut me to the bone, because if it had been one of his parents in that hospital bed, you better believe I would have been the first one on the phone, checking in, offering help, sending love. I wouldn't have waited for his permission. I would have just shown up. So that double standard was infuriating. And it was heartbreaking. After I called him out, he did finally text her. He even took the boys up one evening to visit her. But by then, it felt forced. It only happened because I pushed for it. And I remember sitting there thinking, who are you? How could I have been married to you for over 20 years and not know this side of you? It was disorienting. Painful, like I had been married to a stranger. One afternoon, I left the hospital, walked out to my car, and I just sat there with tears running down my face. The thought kept repeating in my head, I cannot lose my mom too. If I lost her on top of everything else, I didn't know if I could survive it. I felt so completely alone. Even when I was sending updates, even when he'd occasionally ask how she was doing, I didn't feel supported. I felt abandoned all over again. Because the truth is, I was fighting on 2 battlefields at once: betrayal and grief, divorce and pneumonia, my husband's affair, and my mom's illness. and carrying all of that nearly broke me. But I stayed. I sat with her. I called doctors. I listened through the tests. I held her hand. I did what I needed to do. I fought right beside her because that's what daughters do, and that's what she would do for me. Thank God she pulled through. She's better now. But back then, I didn't know if we'd get there. And it shook me in a way I'll never forget. Explosions and boundaries. That anger I mentioned earlier, it turned into words, into notes, into a hard line I finally drew for myself. By October, I had carried so much. My mom in the hospital fighting for her life, the boys trying to hold steady while their world crumbled, the business falling squarely on my shoulders, and him calling, texting, pushing, still asking for favors that would cost me. I'd had it. I'd had it with being asked to clean up his messes. I'd had it with him acting like everything was fine. I'd had it with the lies and the double life. On October 18th, it all came out in a note I wrote on my phone. You really have a lot of nerve calling me and asking me to do you a favor that's going to F me over. Haven't you F'd me over enough already? Do not call me again asking me to do favors for you with the way you have treated me the past few months. I have enough shit going on in my life right now with my mom being sick in the hospital, and I don't need your bullshit to deal with on top of it. You always say we both have changed. Well, I can tell you I don't like the person you have become. A self-centered asshole that only cares about yourself. It makes me sick how fake you are. Taking the boys up to see my mom like you give two shits about her. You're just trying to save face with the boys and pretend like you care. They might not see it now, but believe me, one day they'll see exactly who you are. You cheated, you wanted out of this marriage and wanted to leave. You figure all this shit out on your own. Don't ask me for any favors that F me over. That note marked a turning point because I realized my anger wasn't just about him. It was about me protecting myself, protecting my space, protecting my mom's healing, my kids' stability, and my own sanity. And then came Halloween weekend. He told me he wouldn't take her to that tournament. He almost promised me, but he did. And not only did he take her, she posted about it in the group we were all in. It wasn't just a picture. It was picture after picture of them together. Her bragging about his win, tagging him, putting photos of the two of them together in front of everyone, including my boys. It was like a knife to the heart. I remember calling him and saying, "Really? You think this is okay?" He brushed it off, saying she didn't realize any of us were in that social media group. But I didn't believe that for a second. It's easy to see who's in a social media group. What crushed me most was that my kids saw it. Ryan was furious. And honestly, I think a lot of his anger came from watching me break down. Because by then, they had seen me sob uncontrollably. They had witnessed my pain. So when those pictures popped up, it wasn't just about him. It was about watching me hurt. And that hurt my boys too. Eventually, I left that group. I couldn't keep seeing it. I couldn't keep letting her posts cut me open again and again. He promised it wouldn't happen again. But by then, it was already too late. What stunned me was how they both carried on like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just blown up two marriages, devastated two families, crushed their kids, and shattered people's lives. They were out there living their best life, taking trips, smiling for pictures, while me and my kids were home crumbling. And not just us, it reached into extended family too. Everyone was touched by his betrayal. I still can't wrap my head around that. I'll never understand how they could move on so easily when so many people were left in ruins. Looking back now, I can say that tournament weekend was a big part of what pushed me over the edge. It was hurt on top of hurt on top of hurt. And by the end of the month, I couldn't do it anymore. I blocked him. Not because I was healed, not because I didn't still love him or still hurt, but because I couldn't carry another ounce of his chaos. Blocking him was survival. It was me finally saying, enough. When you're that tired, that scared, and that broken, anger becomes the only thing that keeps you upright. It becomes your shield. It gives you a voice when grief has stolen everything else. And I don't regret it. I don't regret the words. I don't regret calling him out. Those words freed something inside me. They made me realize I could fight for myself. Filing and facing reality. October 31st, Halloween. That was the day the divorce paperwork was officially filed, and maybe it sounds silly, but it felt symbolic. Ironic even, because on the very day when masks are worn, his mask finally came off. The truth was standing there, staring me in the face. He wasn't choosing me. He wasn't coming back. And I think that's when the betrayal really started to settle in. The fantasy was fading and the pain was becoming reality. Month 3 was heavy. It was the beginning of a deeper grief. Less panic, more heartbreak. Less crying every hour, more staring off into space, realizing this is my life now. Some days were sad, some were angry, some were numb, some even had moments of strength, but none of it was steady. It wasn't day by day, it was hour by hour, hopeful in the morning, broken by lunch, strong in the afternoon, crumbling again by bedtime. It was a roller coaster. And Halloween wasn't just symbolic because of the divorce filing. Halloween was always one of the biggest holidays in our house. We have just as many boxes of Halloween decorations as Christmas decorations because Carson loves Halloween. It's his favorite holiday. Every year we went big. Skeletons, lights, fog machine, pumpkins, you name it. But not this year. This year, I couldn't bring myself to pull it all out. And I felt guilty because Carson questioned it. Why aren't we decorating? Why aren't we doing this? I told him, you and your brothers can pull everything out if you want to decorate. But my heart just wasn't in it. I was just trying to get by. I was juggling betrayal, divorce, the business, my mom in the hospital, and raising 3 boys. And decorating felt impossible. The truth, I felt like I let him down. I felt like I took a little piece of his happiness away. Because holidays for kids should be fun, magical, steady. And that year, Halloween was none of those things. And if I'm being honest, I haven't decorated for Halloween the same since. Still, I found strength I didn't know I had. The moment I surprised myself was filing for divorce. That was the moment. And honestly, part of me hoped that by filing, he would see how serious I was. That maybe it would open his eyes. That maybe he'd realize what he was about to lose and come back. But he didn't. And now I'm grateful he didn't. Because filing was me starting to fight. Not for him, not for us, but for me, for my kids, for our future. I was still managing the house, still managing the business, still protecting the finances. He never tried to take that from me, maybe because deep down he knew I wouldn't ever use it against him, even though he had every reason to think I could. But that didn't erase the sting of knowing he was spending our money on someone else. That part crushed me. And yes, I called him out more times than I should have. But it didn't matter. He just didn't care. What mattered is that I kept showing up. I filed for divorce. I managed the house. I kept moving forward. And that is strength. My internal dialogue started to shift. I began telling myself, I'm strong. I can do this. I'm going to be okay. I didn't write a lot, but I journaled enough to let some of it out. And every time I did, I knew in my heart we were going to be okay. There were flickers, tiny glimpses of something beyond the pain. I said it all the time. I just want the pain to go away. And maybe for a second, I could imagine a life after it. But I wasn't there yet. Still, something inside me was shifting. I began asking myself, did I ever really know him? Because the more I discovered the secrets, the patterns, the more I realized maybe our marriage wasn't what I believed it to be. And that realization was terrifying, but it was also the beginning of letting go. If I could go back and speak to myself in that third month, I'd say, look at you. You're growing. You're healing. You're becoming stronger. You're starting to believe that you and your boys are going to be okay. Keep going. Keep reaching. Even if it doesn't all make sense yet, you'll figure it out. You always do. And yes, you will make it. And what am I proud of from that time, even if no one noticed? I got up every single day, even on the days I didn't want to, even when I was falling apart inside. I got out of bed, I showed up for my kids, I held it together enough so they didn't have to carry my pain. That is not small. That is not easy. That is strength. Month 3 wasn't the end of the pain, but it was the beginning of something new, a new strength, a new clarity, a new chapter, even if I didn't know what it was yet. So if you're in that place wondering how you'll ever get through, just keep getting up, keep breathing, keep reaching for the tiniest glimmer of hope, because even the smallest step forward is still forward. That was month 3. The paperwork, the hospital visits, the anger spilling out of me in ways I couldn't hold back anymore. The boys beginning to see the cracks for themselves, and me realizing that blocking him, even if only for a short while, was survival. It was the month of filing, the month of masks finally falling off, the month I began to whisper to myself, you're strong, you can do this, you're going to be okay. And if you're listening right now in your own storm, I hope you know the same is true for you. The heartbreak, the exhaustion, the moments where you wonder how you'll survive, I want you to hear me when I say you will. Even when you don't feel strong, you are stronger than you know, and you will make it through. As always, you are strong, you are worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.